going and get called to the public, I believe we're going to have an addition, maybe an amendment with the budget, or is that on, or did that get enough? Oh, wait, fiscal year 2021 budget up. Never mind. I stand corrected. So I'll call to the public. I see a telephone line listed there, and I don't know who that is, but we'll call out to the public.
There is a public on the phone, but I know the number, and that's one of our staff accountants that is listening on the phone. If you want to say something now, you press *9 on your keypad. Otherwise, I think she's just watching the meeting. And then
Right.
we've got two
All right,
guests.
awesome. Welcome aboard, Steve and Melissa. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good, good, good. All right, next up, consider accepting and placing on file the June 11th, 2020 routine personnel items, the June 25th, 2020 routine personnel and personnel items. Tobin, anything?
The first two, there was some overlap. There were some names listed on both lists.
Yeah,
Parks and Rec employees, I think.
right. Yeah, I
Other than
think I saw
that,
that.
no.
Yeah, I saw a couple retirements that we had already knew about, so.
Yep.
So, all right, I think those corrections probably can be easily made, or can they not, Nicole? Just have them on one?
Yeah, I see.
where the-
I see that the Donald Shepard, it looks like there's a discrepancy in his hire date or effective date. Other than Donald Shepard, is there another one that you see?
Yeah, I think there was another Parks employee. Well, how about Bruce Porter? Was he on?
Oh, yep, I see him now, and
Yeah.
it looks like all the information is the same. It's just a different effective date. So I'll find out why the discrepancy there.
Okay.
That's weird because on the later personnel, the routine personnel, it has an earlier effective date. So that's curious. You wouldn't think that would be the case. So I'll figure out what's going
I've
on.
never seen any overlap between these before, so,
Me either.
okay.
All right. Yeah, that's, okay, let me get back to the agenda here. As I said earlier, for Steve and Melissa, if you guys see me looking down quite a bit, I'm looking at my phone because I only have access to one screen, so. All right, next year, fiscal year 2021 budget
Can I get a
update.
motion on the?
Oh, so sorry. I'll make a
Yeah.
motion. Go ahead, Tobin, go ahead, if you want to make it.
I'll make a motion that we accept and place on file the routine personnel items for June 11th, June 25th, and July 9th.
I'll support that. I'll support that. Any further discussion? I have nothing else. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, it goes forward. Now we can get to the fiscal year 2021 budget update. And let me just quickly, if you want to, Nicole, or if you want to start or do say something, and I'll
Yes,
find it on my phone here.
sure. Or if I share this screen, does that does enough?
Yeah,
of that
that'll work.
through
Yeah,
that?
that'll work. That now I have to look at really tiny print, so that's perfect.
Yeah, that's a little better for you there.
Yeah.
And if you may need to manipulate the pictures of the video participants if that gets in the way of your
No, I can see
viewing,
it.
but
No, they're all on my side here now, so that's good. So
that number is pretty big enough. It probably sticks out to you. We're at about a negative 2.5 million. No big surprise, no big scare. I feel like that's where we always are when this first draft comes out. This first page talks about general fund revenues. And if you look to the far right column for the 21 requested numbers, the only thing increasing is tax revenue. Every other revenue stream is projected downward.
okay.
To where the bottom line is our current budget at about 20.8 million in revenue. Next year, we're looking at 19.3-ish. Now, the tax number is based off of the 2020 taxable values that Equalization Director Pete Preston brought to the board in April. So those are good, solid numbers. Remember, he presented about a 4% increase in taxable value. No new turbine revenue in this number at this time for taxes. Co Township is in there. We're seeing revenue from that wind farm now. Nothing built in at all from the new wind farm. We know there will be something because we see them going in the ground. There's taxable value being planted in the county that will come on the tax rolls, and it's going to be there as, you know, as of tax day, December 31st. But there's a big difference with whether they're complete, whether they're producing power, even if they come on the roll still under construction and at 50% of their taxable value, it's going to be a benefit to us and above and beyond the number that we're looking at right here. So I just wanted to something else we've done in past years when we're projecting tax revenue, we don't always anticipate all of the captures that will be taken from our operating levy. And I want you to know that we have anticipated the captures to be taken out of this, so we shouldn't see any surprise there. We're estimating to the tune of about $500,000 in revenues that are captured from our taxes by other districts that use those for other improvements locally.
That's like the Union Township DDA. And the TIFA, I thought with the city, didn't the city stop some of the TIFA, some of their tax capture though, I believe?
Yes, stopped some of it and agreed to reduce some of it or capture it at a lesser rate, if you will. Looks like a lot of the cities are at 75%. Some of them are at 40%. Of what they could be capturing. So I think they're being diligent in their budgets to ensure that, you know, what they're capturing, there's a need and a use for. But I just draw your attention. It's a sizable amount, obviously.
Just looking at this first, I know there's 7 screens and I haven't looked at, this is the first look at it. The 2 quick questions pop out to my head. First, the transfer in from other funds. Looks like we dropped, from the amended 2020 to the requested 2021, we're roughly 1.1 down from the transfer in from other funds. What exactly is that in the revenue loss? What, I mean, is that?
Well, normally that would be a transfer in from delinquent tax.
Right.
Transfer in from PA 123 fund, transfer in from commissary fund.
Mm-hmm.
So as we work on this budget, if we find that there's excess in those funds that we're able to transfer in to general fund to cover some of the general fund expenses, we would do that. At this time, we did not include any of those in our revenue projection.
Okay. Well, this is like looking at, this is always, like you said, the big draft with the capital letters in the top right-hand corner. I don't want you to interrupt one more time if I can. I don't know. Here I am trying to take control of your screen there. Sorry. Going down probably in the first 7 pages, it looks like 1 of 7, it says, use of fund balance. Currently, where are we at? Most ballpark estimate in our unreserved fund balance. Or if you're going down.
Without giving you too much whiplash there.
Okay.
You can see right here that ending fund balance as of end of last fiscal year was almost $9 million.
Mm-hmm.
No, that doesn't include the I know what you're talking about, Commissioner, the unreserved. I can get you that number.
No, if worst case scenario, say we had, and obviously with everything that's going on right now,
it is the worst case scenario.
I mean, you could potentially pull out numbers like 30-40% out of your fund balance just initially to balance this. And as I've always been saying right along, having some people don't, 25% of that area don't like it, but having the turbine revenue kind of in the hole, sort of say, or in the ground, that's something Isabella County can count on going forward in the long run, because, you can't hold out hope that we're going to get any COVID reimbursements. I think it's just, a lot of this is just going to get worse before it gets better. I think the seriousness and the deaths aren't going to be there, but the loss of revenues is still going to continue on. The loss of hours worked as more and more people get infected or tested and infected, even though symptoms aren't being shown. And roughly it's, you got it, you got to get over it. You still got to miss work. You still got to take all those precautions. So yeah, it's going to get worse before it gets better. And anyway, Yeah, so I'm sorry to jump ahead. Thank you, Melissa, for clearing that up. So roughly, I had in my head a number like 6 million, 8 million. Does that sound right? Or what's your thoughts on that?
After this year, I think you're right.
Or-
You're right
or
in
re-
there, yes.
Or even before this year, right? Right. Yeah, it seems to me we
That's
had
where we're at heading into this year.
okay, all right, very good.
But
All
that,
right.
like Melissa pointed out, that's total fund balance. That's not necessarily, everything that's immediately available
Right.
to us, but it gives you a great picture.
Well, it's like this, you have a rainy day fund and right now it's pouring. So, that's how I'm
Well,
looking at it. So,
Let's talk about the right now, even
All right.
with $9 million of fund balance, look at where we're sitting in the year right now. And that,
Yeah.
remember, that's always the case, and that's very natural because we go through 9 months of our fiscal year before we levy our operating levy, before our revenues start to come in. They just went out July 1st. The local treasurers haven't even done their first disbursement to us yet. Our tax revenue that's not started to trickle in. It will start probably next week. So you can imagine where that stresses, that's a cash flow stressor, obviously.
well, that's not only a cash flow stressor immediate. I think that's a cash flow problem if, you hear, well, I can't afford to pay my taxes and I can't afford to do that. If that hits, I think, we're projecting that what we send out, we're going to get back to a certain percentage. If that doesn't hit, I think that's going to be our problem is that $2-something million right now in the red that's projected. And we know you can play around with that number and make it get closer to pink or even get into the black or the gray a little bit. That's an unknown. I mean, and it hasn't been that way. I mean, it hasn't been a way. Wow. We're sending out 100% of our tax revenue. We're hoping to get 98% back in normal years. Now we're hoping to get X percentage back because it's going to be interesting. I mean, I don't know. We'll find out. We will see.
Indeed, we will. But I want you to remember that there is a tried and true process in place for
Right.
delinquent tax collection. And
Oh, I know. And that could get tried and true tested. That's for sure. I saw you had your hand up, Steve.
Well, I was just going to say as of September 30, 19, I pulled up the audit to take a quick look, and the unassigned fund balance was 5.8 million.
Okay.
So, taking 9 and using 2.5, that cuts, that is a
Well,
pretty.
you're getting in areas you don't want to go to. And as far as someone who, board members or trustees of, or commissioners, I shouldn't say trustees, we're commissioners. And that's probably one of the biggest things we do is make sure that the county's in good financial shape. And, because we're a very service oriented economy and yeah, you want to maintain everything. And this is going to be interesting. Like I said earlier, we have a nice source of revenue projected coming in away from taxes, which some counties don't. Look to the north, look at Clare County, look to the west, Mecosta County, even Midland County. I mean, my goodness, even with Dow, I mean, you look what happened in their tragedy they had several months ago with the dams and stuff. I mean, Gratiot's probably in good shape, obviously with the turbine revenue, but we're very, I don't want to say fortunate. That's not a good term. It's a term I don't even want on record, but we are, at least we have some alternative source of revenue that can help right this ship, I guess. So anyway, go ahead. I'm sorry. I'm just digressing. I guess it's the California early time thing. Sorry.
It's important stuff. This is,
when your natural body alarm gets up and you look at the clock and it's 4:55 and you go, oh, I'm late. I slept in and you're like, oh, wait a minute. I didn't sleep in. What am I doing here? So.
it takes some getting used to. Anything on revenues before we move to the expenditures?
I don't see anything at first glance.
No.
Okay. And really the expenditures, really mostly towing the line. I'll kind of leave it here and then go slowly through it. The only couple of departments that are really seeing a big increase would be sheriff and corrections. And really the increases,
Nicole, is that because of the number of employees in those departments and the increase in wages? Is that what we're seeing there?
that's exactly right. And that's pretty
Mhm.
much the increase you're seeing across the board, and almost every department is going up. There's a few that aren't, but it's because of wages, right? I mean, our budget is at least 80% wages and benefits, and with the recent Siegel Waters implementation, you know, that was certainly impactful going forward too. So the biggest, like I said, the biggest departments would be those with the most personnel, sheriffs and corrections, certainly.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
you're right, spot on. It's payroll expenses that are causing these to go up.
Mhm.
So if I just follow through to the bottom line, we're seeing an increase, maybe about 650,000 in expenses. Really not a terrible increase when you think of the implementation. Some of the things we've put in place recently, I think it's to be expected. It's the cost of living increase.
Nicole, I have a question for you, and Tobin, I'm so sorry. You may have just said this and I kind of dazed out for 1 second. You just talked about the sheriff's department, and we haven't had the courts come through yet, and we haven't had the non-elected officials come through yet. Is that factored into these numbers? So that's from the courts and from everybody else, where those that operating as far as wages and benefits, or not benefits, I guess, but wages mostly. That number's anticipated to go up. Do you have any idea what kind of numbers? Let's say I mean, we had a rough estimate. I think we could probably put together right now. What is like a rough estimate that we're anticipating if all the recommendations, or, you know,
I don't know Margaret's recommendations that she's going to present when she returns. We certainly could look at her presentation from February last, when she presented the Siegel Water study and what the impacts would be, you know, collectively, to get a kind of an idea of what the courts would.
I would think that would, I don't know about you, Tobin, but that to me is a number I think we should have in the budget. At least have a work, I mean, because because right now, I mean, I can't, go ahead, sorry.
Well, we had talked about the departments that we have not done yet. We talked about making those wages retroactive, so it's going to be a fairly good sized hit there.
Yeah, it's going to be both in this year's budget, the 2020 budget, but looking at the 2021 budget, it's going to be carried over. So I think without putting those in, I mean, I don't know the number, but it's got to be roughly half of what we've increased, maybe not quite that much. Maybe I'm overestimating it. But you're still talking a considerable dollar amount.
Yes.
I think we need to account for that. Again, this is only a first draft, so we can have it in the second draft.
Absolutely.
But I do think that needs that number of some sort. You know, one of the reasons you never want to put that in is you never want to assume that you're giving anybody money or giving anybody raises or salary adjustments or anything like that. But I mean, my opinion is it's going to happen. I don't think it's not going to happen. We've already gone on record saying we're looking at it, and I don't think with very few exceptions, we've taken all the recommendations and ran with it. So I think we need to have that number in there so we get a true, accurate picture.
Okay.
And it's not going to be a pretty picture either. That's,
Right.
I mean, I'd love
Not
not to have
going the right way.
No, it's not. But again, you've got to look outside, and it's a different world out there. I look at my counter to my right now, and I've got 3 face masks and 2 bottles of hand sanitizer. And I never had you never had, whatever, it's just a different world today. So I think some of our expenditure, some of our pulling out of fund balance, while it's something I certainly never have recommended doing. So these are unprecedented times. They really are. And we got to do what we got to do to maintain services to our county residents. And you look at what's going on. I'm digressing here because this is what happens when I drink coffee. you look at what's going on, you just read, you look at some of the, Nashville, Tennessee is raising their property tax assessments 37%. Some places are getting prop assessments and higher taxes to their residents to cover these expenses. So we're not to that system yet, and I don't think we will be. But it's having, like they said, the rainy day fund and having the future revenue, alternative revenue other than taxes. I mean, tax assessments and property values is something Isabel County's in a good position for. And if this situation, it's terrible that it's happened, but I think Isabella County can weather this. So anyway, that's just me.
You too. We were in a good position going into it. I think we'll be okay. And I think you're right, commissioners. And maybe not a known, but certainly an anticipated cost that we can quantify. So even if we don't build it into the budget per se, down to each individual employee, we can at least put a placekeeper in there for how much we think it's going to impact the budget. So
I would definitely suggest doing that. That way we can see. I personally like to see grim pictures. I mean, I shouldn't say it like that. I like to see transparency and see what I'm having to deal with. Because that's, and I think it definitely is going to happen. And Tobin, you made a good point. It's going to be retro too. So it's going to affect the 2020 budget also.
Yeah.
Which is money, which hits the cash flow. Which is in the red. We're making the red even a different color, the darker red instead of a lighter red. So,
I remember last year we started out with these draft budgets with a bigger negative number, and it got smaller, and hopefully that's where we're headed this year. There's more unknowns this year. I think we need to talk earlier in the process if we're going to plan on taking DTF funds and putting them into the general fund, just because of the kind of chaos that it created last year and the opposition to that. I think we had every right to do that, and I didn't have a problem with it. Some of the commissioners did, and I think if we're going to have that battle, we need to know it's coming, and we need to have it sooner, and we need to work that out. However it goes, I think we need to work that part of it out a little bit sooner.
I think the gentleman right below you on my screen, Steve, excuse me, Tobin, Steve probably shouldn't, if he hasn't already started on that nice spreadsheet that he's done over the years, he should be popping that up pretty soon. So
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yep. It's in process. Yes.
yeah.
underway. Yes, and certainly, some uncertainty with delinquent taxes this year. And so extra diligence and trying to
because
see
there's
our
going to
crystal
be
ball.
because that's going to be very, very interesting. That's a big unknown. So
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
so,
Some
all
of the things that were built into the assumptions, we did build in a 10% increase for health insurance costs. We're actually meeting with our third-party administrator, 44 North, tomorrow to get the actual renewal numbers with Blue Cross. So we'll be looking at those. Hopefully we'll be able to shave some off of that 10% increase estimate, but it looks like it's coming in around 9%, so we won't be able to shave much, but there is going to be some savings there. We spend $3 million a year on health insurance. Also, we make some assumptions about the defined benefit costs, so we'll take a harder look at those as we go through. So those are just kind of some of the assumptions that are built in that may not be directly impacted by a wage increase. But certainly all the step increases are built in.
Okay.
So that is general fund, and we go to the part of the draft budget that basically just summarizes general fund and some of the other major funds that we look at. So that puts us at about, like we talked about 2.5 in the hole for general fund as a 21 budget. All the other funds you see are dipping into fund balance in the 21 requested budget. But all except for recycling at the bottom, really have healthy fund balances to take from. Recycling is a little different because a lot of its fund balance is tied up into capital. A lot of it is equipment or buildings. I mean, it's not, they don't have $1.5 million cash. And Melissa helped me with what the transfer out in the fiscal 21 requested budget to the MRF, I want to say was in the neighborhood of 400,000.
It ended up being closer to 300. I'm sorry, I wasn't. Sure. Yeah, close
you're
to
fine.
300,000. But that also depends on how they're gonna, excuse me, shake out this year. You know, we
Sure.
can look at where they're at now, halfway through the year. You know, they're anticipated to use 74,000 of their fund balance. They're at about 43. Well, that's a little more than halfway through the year. That's, you know, 3/4 of the year. So it's going to depend on how it shakes out, how some of those prices, commodity, you know, I've been talking with Jake a bit. So right now I felt safe and actually was a little more conservative with 300,000.
Okay.
We may be able to dial a little bit of that back, but as of right now, it felt pretty good, you know, for them to operate. And, you know, definitely not in a deficit with the 300,000.
Right. Okay, good. Well, still, I don't know that, you know, if that surprises anyone or not, you know, the amount of money that we're transferring out to the MRF to keep it whole, but it's certainly a commitment. We know it's important to the local community, and actually the MRF, even though, you know, during COVID, when we had the stay at home and we were closed, commodity prices shot through the roof. Go imagine, you know, now that we're back, I think Jake, the last I heard, he'd lost like $25 a ton on cardboard, you know, so we're just like right back down to where it was before, now that we have all this product. But certainly, you know, during COVID, actually the MRF was one of the areas where we haven't fared so bad because you know, a lot of the staff there, not all of the staff certainly, but a lot of the staff was through manpower. So when we were closed, that expense, you know, didn't continue. So that helped their budget a little bit. But these funds now are the funds that we're charging the indirect costs to. So please keep that in mind. For years, I believe there was in some of the funds maybe adding to fund balance while those indirect costs were absorbed into general fund. So now we are allocating costs, not only the indirect costs, but also the defined benefit pension costs. Those are, in the last few years, are now allocated out to these funds. So that may be why in part, why you see a trend moving to, you know, where they're using some fund balance. But I feel like we're going to get there to a balance eventually, where if they've got fund balances, it's for a purpose, right? It's for a known purpose.
That's an interesting statement. I was not aware of that as far as the defined benefit contributions coming out as an indirect cost. That's interesting. I mean, yeah, that could have been, if the cost allocation wasn't being done over the years, that would increase their fund balance and decrease the county's fund balance. I mean, the operating fund balance. That's it. I did not realize that. And I know Commission on Aging has a few on that. So
yes, and
that was one of our bigger ones, actually. It was being allocated, but just, you know, our way of doing it, you know, based on actives, or, you know, who was actively here when, you know, obviously you've got retirees and people who were, you know, in there, maybe not fully, or that were vested, but still, you know, not drawing yet. So getting with MERS and getting a better calculation, we saw that go, you know, general fund and Commission on Aging. You're right, Commissioner, that was one of the bigger ones. You know, they have a lot of staff and a lot of that retired. And so you saw that go from Commission on Aging and just jump up. And so it's allocated better now.
That's a huge, not a huge, well, yeah, that's a large dollar expense, or it's a large revenue or I mean, that's a large expense every year.
It is, and what we were doing really wasn't sustainable because we would say, okay, there's 3 people still left on the defined benefit in this office, so they, we charge out appropriately prorated on that, but pretty soon those defined benefit folks retire and draw their pension, and there's nothing
Right.
left but the new hires. So what do you,
Mhm.
how do you allocate it then? So Melissa's absolutely right. We went to the source. MERS has all this information for us, so we're able to drill down by employee the cost and
Mhm.
allocate it out appropriately.
Wow.
Even if they're already retired and drawing, we're still funding that, and that is now charged to the appropriate department and or fund.
Wow.
Those
Yeah.
legacy costs, yeah, it goes back.
That's, well, then we've mentioned before, the legacy with the county. It could be worse if you had to have the medical legacy. I mean, that's just, we're talking a 9% increase. That's huge
Yeah.
if you had a medical legacy part of it, so.
Yes, the people who sat in those chairs 25-ish years ago and made that change, just phenomenal foresight. Thank you, forefathers. Any questions about any of these other funds? They're really towing the line. Inspections fund is looking good. Obviously, we're going to add to that fund balance with all the wind turbine activity in the current year. They're doing great. The rest of these pages, this first one here is going to be the personnel requests from departments. We had taken a strong stance on the beginning of the budget process to say, please don't ask for the moon. There's a lot of uncertainty right now. The only personnel change request we had came from Building and Grounds, and looking to increase a part-time custodian to a full-time custodian. We have 3 full-time custodians currently and a part-time, so.
Now, was that part-time one, is that the one that originally, for lack of a better term, got hired through an agency, and then we hired that person, and as a part-time now, it's being requested to make that person from a part-time into a full-time? Is that the
It
same?
is the very same person, yes, sir.
All right.
Yes, sir. The next is capital requests for the general fund. Again, a little light. Usually this list is a lot longer. We have from Building and Grounds a request to replace the penthouse roof on the county building. Apparently, I've never seen it, but it's not nearly as glamorous as it sounds. Apparently, it's all about mechanical equipment and stuff, but apparently it's time for that. The Register of Deeds has requested a microfilm scanner, and part of that could be funded from her tech fund, I believe. And then Sheriff, in his rotation of vehicle replacement, looking for a Ford SUV and a Ford pickup, and some software that he's needing for 911 export, I believe. So again, very, very light, and we'll be looking at Sheriff's Commissary Fund to potentially draw from for some of that vehicle replacement as we normally.
Now, those vehicle replacements, I'm assuming, I mean, some of the prices that we've seen with my bid, I'm assuming those vehicle replacements are the fittings of all the equipment too, because that seems to be quite a bit of added cost. I'm sure that's not the actual purchasing price. Of the
That
actual
must
vehicle.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah, because that we've all been flabbergasted at some of the prices we see. And so that's got to be totally fitted with
Yeah.
Procon, whatever equipment they put on, and all
Yes.
the electronics that have to go into that. So okay,
Yes,
all right.
it is.
And actually in the next round, I can even, that's probably a good suggestion. I can break those out, Commissioner. It probably wouldn't hurt to see the vehicle and then all the equipment that goes with it, just so.
Yeah, because that's a large dollar amount.
Good.
Yes, no, it is. It's all combined, and that was something I did, but yes, I'll make a note to break it out in the next round so we can see what that looks.
Yeah, I know, and I also know in the past, I think they've been able to repurpose some of the older, I mean, I know that electronics wear out and they have a useful lifespan, but I think they've been able to repurpose some of that. So yeah, that's just, like I said, it makes sense. Yeah, Melissa, that's fine. It's, okay, perfect. Thank you. Thank
Okay,
you.
yep.
I think this shows too that, the sheriff's pickup truck that he requested was 53,000, and the couple that you see on this list are more in the line of 28,000. So I think that
Mhm.
shows us indeed that the equipment's included. So these are capital improvement requests from funds, not general fund. 911 has requested the Motorola console project. That's the 800 megahertz radio project that has been requested in the past. And a new computer aided dispatch system that's very necessary. Inspections, looking for another pickup truck. I know their building inspector went to a pickup truck this year after the recent years and his, I think, escape, having to park at the road and walk into sites. And they've had such great response with that truck and being able to access more sites that they're looking to purchase another one. Link Isabella Water Supply is looking at well number 2 for some rehab. They've got a pump that may need to be replaced. And then Parks, again, quite a small capital list from them, looking again for that gooseneck trailer, another pickup truck, a small tractor, and maybe replacement of a gatehouse at Herrick or Deerfield, not sure. No surprises there, and that is our page 7 of 7. Are there any questions on any of that?
No, I don't. Tobin, you yourself? I have lots of questions, but yeah, no, it's, like I said, it's draft number 1, so.
Okay,
Thank you.
excellent. So for draft number 2, we'll make sure to build in some assumptions for further Siegel Waters implementation. And we'll continue, Steve will continue his analysis of delinquent tax revolving fund and certainly start that process earlier if there's going to be any requests to transfer any of those funds.
Great.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. That completes the fiscal year 2021 budget update. Now invoice list discussion. This is where, Tobin, I'll let you start. I actually have pink sticky notes because I couldn't find any paper in the house here. So I wrote stuff on sticky notes and none of them.
I didn't see anything too out of the ordinary. I guess I'd like to understand this McBride Quality Care contract a little better because I see we pay them a monthly fee, and then there's always additional charges on top of that. And there's a monthly fee of about $38,000 for each month. And then on the June 26th list, there's another fee of $9,000. I guess at some point, I guess I'd just like to understand how that all works.
That's just usually just for one client, isn't it? One, I call them patients, but
Yeah, if there's a small additional fee, it usually says, and it says here, there's $9,000 youth treatment, one youth. So I would assume that's something over and above what we pay for with our monthly contract.
Yes, exactly. And I think some of them that require some other forms of like direct supervision go above and beyond that contract.
Okay.
Some of these youth require very specialized services. And so let me find out what those specialized services are. But I believe that's what we're looking at, just as I look up some invoices here to what we're seeing.
Okay. Just so I can better kind of understand that, because it's a chunk of money that goes to them every month. So
Indeed.
one youth, one person that can quickly get expensive. So, and I see it on our side of my business. The amount of, I call them patients again, but the amount of persons in our county that obtain services like this is flabbergasting for a county as small as Isabella. I mean, we service Isabella, we service Gratiot, Montcalm, And it's incredible. And that's probably an area of youth services or whatever that we don't even seen on my business end. It's extremely high, but it's costly. It's very costly.
Mhm.
So, yeah, okay. What else, Tobin?
That's it. That was the only.
Yeah. No, I just, like I said, looking at my sticky notes here, I didn't really have anything too much that I saw. Yeah. I had to steal my son's girlfriend's sticky notes, like I said. And she was working, they just moved. How fortunate of a young man that has his dad drive his truck and his dog cross country. And he gets here and says, oh, by the way, I'm moving. So I need the truck and I need you. So that's what I did yesterday. Oh, this California trip has not been the ideal circumstance. And he lives now, you guys are familiar with San Diego at all. He lives right near Balboa Park, which all the museums and the San Diego Zoo and everything. Well, guess what? Zoo's closed, San Diego museums are closed, everything's closed.
Oh, yeah.
So last night we sat on their deck and had pizza on cardboard boxes because they don't have any tables or chairs or anything. So yeah, and I think we're going shopping today for that. And you know who's going to probably end up paying for that. So anyway, I'm done saying, I digress. No, I didn't have nothing really out of the ordinary. I do see that we're having jail expenses, but we anticipated that. Integrated architecture, I think that was a big hit. But again, we're moving forward without yet. So yeah,
Yes, and I did confirm with our financial advisor yesterday that those costs we are incurring will be covered, you know, with when we issue the bond for building of the jail, those costs will be reimbursed by that bond issuance to the general fund.
because it's quite a bit of money. So
Just climbing.
Sometime, I guess it'd be nice to have an update on where the jail, the architectural services and things, where we're at with all of that.
Absolutely.
How it's coming and.
Absolutely.
we still got the two big prongs left to go in the, I think, 4-prong cane, as I call it, maybe a 5-prong cane. And I think one of those went, well, we can put it into the COVID-19. So when you all done with the invoice list discussion? You're all done with that?
I am, yeah.
All right, yeah, I am too. So we'll jump into the COVID-19 discussion. I'll just continue on what I was saying. Because I think we got 2 prongs left, more than 2 prongs, but one, we got land discussion. I think we're going to have that, and that's why I brought under COVID-19. In our next meeting, that possibly could be discussed. And then we got to decide once, okay, we've got everything in place. Now we got to figure out how to pay for it. That's another prong in the cane. So I think those are, when you say getting record with the jail, I think, yeah, we want to see what we spent so far. That's a great idea. I totally agree. See what our outlays will be. But, you know, we've still got 2 big things, probably the 2 biggest things, other than the actual building of the building is where we're going to build it and how we're going to pay for it. So,
Yeah.
I mean, those
You're
are,
exactly right, Commissioner. And we're anticipating a closed session next Tuesday night at the board meeting to discuss property.
right.
Okay.
And one other quick thing on the COVID-19, more than one quick thing on COVID-19 discussion. As I had mentioned we had mentioned before having a open meeting and having it in the Commission on Aging site. I believe that's where we had talked about having our what date? It's the 21st?
The
Is that-
21st we
Yeah.
had. Yes.
Right, we had talked about doing it at Commission on Aging. And I had mentioned that when I zoomed in on the Union Township board meeting. And I said that, you know, I gave a quick update. I didn't let them put me on video because I just finished working out and I looked like a mess and I had a t-shirt on and, you know, anyway. But they said that they could, and one of their board members, one of their trustees had asked why they didn't do it, Union Township. So they couldn't get together and face. And their manager stated that they couldn't go over 10 people in a room. Now, if that's the case, how are we going to do? Are we going to have? I know Commission on Aging can wall off and do a bunch of stuff like that. Is that going to be the plan? Like have public in one room and they can video it and have people come in and out. We're commissioners plus one or two other people be
Well,
in the room. How's that gonna
Chairman,
work?
as I was discussing that last night with Chairman Green, he kind of came to the conclusion that it probably wasn't very responsible to hold an in-person meeting while our facilities are as such still closed to the general public.
Okay,
You know, I promised him I would make it work, but I think to be inclusive of everyone, we will still hold next week's meeting on Zoom.
okay,
Now,
Okay.
that said, there is a breakout room option on Zoom. I'm sure for the closed session, what we'll do is move that closed session to the end of the meeting. That way we'll be able to end the recording, end the YouTube viewing, and all we'll have is closed session at that point. There is, again, the breakout room function. I do have a lot of confidence in that because, you know, the courts use that function for the attorney-client meetings. You know, they put those folks in a breakout room in confidence. So we probably will be using that function Tuesday for the closed session. Because if there's any public still in the meeting, they'll be able to stay in the meeting. And then we'll just put the commission, whoever's in on the discussion, into the breakout room. And no one will be able to see or hear what's going on. And then you'll come back into the main meeting. But we will
Okay.
still be Zooming next week. I think pretty soon we'll be transitioning back to public, but it just doesn't seem like the responsible thing to do at this time.
okay. Now I'll let the people know then, because that's what we had discussed that. I think before Margaret even left, we had planned on having the 21st be a live meeting. And last I talked with Chairman Green, we were going to have it. That was last week. So I'm glad to see that because as more and more things, it would have been interesting to see how that would have played out. But, you know, yeah, so good. Okay.
Yes.
As far as COVID-19 discussion, Nicole and I and George, we've been kind of having discussions, Tobin, as far as, I think we extended our 2 weeks with the county effective. What day was it last week? It got extended.
It extended on the 9th,
Okay.
so to the 23rd would be the next.
Yeah.
Be here before we know it.
Yeah, a couple things. I mean, if you do open the doors, or I think I talked to Nicole in regards to some of the thoughts that I had, maybe limiting it to one door, one entry. Again, there should be some fire code issues. I have no clue. And also, you look at some places, they have actually personnel, one person standing, helping out, doing things like that. You have, I think the governor just mentioned it in Michigan. We've been operating on it for a couple months now in the pharmacy and also in the grocery stores. Having vulnerable patient hours or vulnerable person hours. And that's something my county might want to take a look at too, having, especially if you do open up the building, have only limited to the vulnerable patients coming in at a certain time. Again, and then taking that 180 degrees opposite, some of the services that the county does can warrant what we're doing now. I mean, appointments and things like that. Because it's going to be very difficult, I think, in the spacing. I think that's going to be the biggest thing, spacing and having facial coverings put on. That seems to be the big issue, is the facial coverings. And even with a mandate, you know, I find myself, like I mentioned earlier, looking at my calendar and having two face masks, two homemade face masks, and a blue that you always see everyone wearing. But, you know, I find myself frequently, like, especially if I'm driving, getting up and going somewhere, I'll walk out and be halfway in a doorway. Oh, I don't have one on me. So will the county be providing at the tables or something like that? I mean, and that's an expense. I mean, they were costing. I used to say that's $1 bill I'm wearing across my face every time you saw it. Now, Melissa appreciated it. Now they're about 65 or 60 cents. But every time you see that, every time you see one of those blue masks, those aren't cheap. I mean, you can say they're a 50-cent piece. We'll be that. It's a 50-cent piece you're wearing on your face. So You know, that adds up after time. So, you know, that's, like I said, that's gonna be a couple big
Mhm.
unknowns is, you know, how are you gonna access into the building? Because I think that's, to me, that's gonna be one of the issues. But it's just weird to see in the different states that I traveled. You know, you hear about it, but you don't see it. Like some of this Iowa and Nebraska, I mean, 80% of the people I encountered didn't have them on. As I got closer and closer, now in California, everyone. I mean, they're spacing, they're doing everything. And again, that's California, and you got people, you know, I look across the thing here, I'm on the third floor of an apartment building, and I see like 15 houses in a square block. You know, Isabella County doesn't have that. Or, you know, you go 1 mile, you hit a farmer's field. We certainly don't have that type of density population, but it's quite interesting. We had you know, the COVID-19, we had 8 young people, just give you a quick example, 8 young people, Littlefield Lake over July 4th holiday party. And that directly affected my business because one of their aunts is an employee of mine. And even though the aunt wasn't directly exposed, she wasn't there. Her niece was over at her house a couple days before the 4th of July. And then her aunt, my employee's older aunt, was there afterwards, who had given a ride to some of those girls on a pontoon boat. So just because you're not directly involved face to face, it does affect, and it's like a shotgun blast going out as far as all the tentacles people can hit. And that's what I was saying earlier is I think we're just scratching the surface of lost manpower hours. And anything we can do to keep our employees safe, it's an expense. It truly is. And, you know, Isabella County being closed and shut down, and they haven't had that or seen that. But as more and more, you know, I look at the right side of my screen, Toby, I don't know what's on your screen, but Jessica and Melissa, I know they both have younger children and stuff. And Nicole's got a young grandbaby. You know, and Nicole, your daughter's a nurse too, isn't she?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. I mean, what they're seeing and with younger children and it's just, you know, unknowns as far as future goes with kids going to school and how we're going to do everything, and having a daughter as a nurse and what she's seeing coming home with a young baby. And it's just, you know, and the loss of manpower is coming up. It's in how we deal with that. And, you know, one person could come in unknown and all of a sudden you have a whole department out. So,
Right.
So we have to, people go, why you should open it. And Margaret will tell you, Nicole, that her and I had at least 2 1-hour conversations in regards to this earlier on. And I was a big proponent. Why I never had to close. I never had to do this. Now you're seeing it and you go, you know, it's just,
Yeah.
I don't know. I have become real, I don't go on a soapbox, but I've got a lot of different views than I used to have. So anyway, I'm all done on the COVID-19 discussion. We live with that every single day, every single minute. So as fast as we can move away from that discussion, I'm happy for that. So
I don't disagree with anything you said there. I think moving cautiously is the way to go. And if we're going to keep having Zoom meetings, if we're going to keep the county building closed, that's fine.
yeah,
We can move at a slow, judicious pace. That's fine. I know there's going to be some pressure. There was a lot of pressure about opening up the MRF, and you know, we opened it when we were ready to open it safely. So
yeah, I agree.
we need to do the same. I mean, I know people that have lost loved ones, so there's a lot of argument about the numbers and percentages, but you know, I do know people that have lost loved ones, so I think we just need to be careful and move slowly and cautiously.
I agree. All right. Anything else on the 19 discussion? I have
I
nothing
do
else.
have,
Oh,
I
go
do want to
ahead.
give you guys an update on
Go ahead.
some
Thank
of
you.
the grants that we're applying for in terms of the CARES Act dollars that are coming from the federal government to the state of Michigan, and they're now sharing in that with the locals. There's 3 grants that we're applying for, hopefully this week. There is one that is for a payroll reimbursement for the months of April and May. We're working to figure out what that total reimbursement would look like, but it's for law enforcement and 911 dispatchers and any personnel whose jobs in April and May focused solely on mitigating COVID-19. And certainly we felt like our IT staff in April and May were working solely to support our law enforcement, our 911, and get remote operations going. And certainly building and ground staff in April and May were doing nothing but cleaning, disinfecting, and sanitizing for COVID. So we're including those in our request as well. This is a first come, first serve grant. There's 200 million available statewide, and apps are due this Friday. We are hoping to have our application in today. We were just contacted by the health department yesterday. This payroll reimbursement is for public safety and public health. So the health department's payroll for April and May could also be reimbursed, but they're not, we don't believe at this time, eligible to apply. We're trying to figure that out. If they have to apply through the county, we will certainly, do that for our partner, and they'll be getting us their payroll information for the public health side of things. So that may, that will happen fast and furious, but our hope is to get that application out as soon as possible.
Okay.
And Steve, I saw you shaking your head to the health department. You are muted right now, but the health department would, I don't think, is an eligible applicant. Maybe I have to ask you to unmute.
No, I muted because the phone was ringing. So I didn't want it going through the, but no, I would agree. That's why I was looking down, as I was looking at the application as you were talking, and from what I can see, I've got like 17 things open here, so now I've lost it. But it's cities, counties, villages, that type of thing. So I would agree with you in saying that I don't, at least in the general terms, the eligibility is cities, villages, townships, and counties. But it doesn't mention, what I would call special purpose governments like health departments or, fire authorities or, that type of thing. So I would tend to agree with you without, I'm looking at the slides from the webinar that was this week, and I'm not seeing, them specifically listed as those kind of entities. Yeah.
200,
Go ahead.
I was just going to say 200 million doesn't seem like a lot of money statewide.
No.
Correct. It does not. They are going to open it up for June and July payroll expenses if there is anything left after the first round, but I agree. It doesn't seem like a lot.
Yeah, and I think that's the one also, and Nicole, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe that's the one that, if they prorate it, I think, if they get, requests for $400 million worth of requests, then in theory, whatever you asked for, you would get half. I mean, if I'm doing the math right, but I don't have a calculator in front of me. So,
that sounds right.
Steve, I understood that. So you did very well in that explanation. So that's my level right there. Thank you for doing that.
There is a whiteboard on the screen share if you would like to try to
to my phone. I was like doing doing the math on there, but conceptually, that one I think is prorated, and I think the other one might be the first come first. I can't remember. I know there's two of them
Gotcha.
hot
That
ones
makes
right
more
now,
sense.
and one of them is due by, and we've had a lot of clients asking for help on those to get them done by the 17th, which is Friday.
Yep, Friday.
and then
yes.
the other
when
one,
they
I think-
released the application materials last Friday. I
Yeah.
believe.
Well, hey, whatever. It's only 200 million.
We're on it. So the other two grants have to do with premium pay, and we have to have a little discussion about that this morning. I've talked in the other committees about this as well, and in a perfect world, we would have this conversation ahead of time in preparation for a pandemic, and we'd have a premium pay policy in place. But here we are mid-pandemic, maybe early pandemic. I don't know. Hopefully late pandemic. And we're we're presented this opportunity again through the CARES Act dollars that have been given to the state. The state is now offering these grant opportunities. Again, this is focusing on law enforcement and 911 dispatchers, corrections officers are included in this, up to $1,000 per employee of premium pay or hazard pay for frontline workers during the COVID-19. Again, this is nothing we negotiated with these folks. These are by and large union group employees. The sheriff has presented me with a list of employees he feels that should receive the hazard pay or the premium pay, as has Director Griffiths at 911. I feel like these groups are going to be requesting something from the county or from the commission. I think that precedent has been set at the state level for that request. So I feel like this is an opportunity, at least for us to get reimbursement for doing this. Countywide, we're looking at a risk of about $75,000. And I say risk because we don't have to pay the premium pay to employees before we apply for it, but we have to state in our application when we're paying it to them. And we have to pay that to them by September 30. And we would not find out if we were funded until November. So there is a risk, right? I mean, if we apply for this, we're saying we're paying it. In addition to that, I will be talking with the county attorney before any application is made, because while most of these are union employees in these groups, there are certainly some employees in those departments who are non-union, and I do not want to set a precedent that the county can't live up to in that regard. So
That's an interesting scenario right there, and I'm not even, I got to take some time to digest that before I make any comments, which sounds
and
weird.
if you'd, yeah, if
'Cause I'm
you'd
usually
rather
just flying
touch base
off the
with me
handle.
later, that's fine
that's-
too. I completely.
That's interesting that you know, again, being frontline, and yeah, you want to do everything. I completely understand that premise. But the state is saying you have to promise this before we're even going to tell you you're going to get the funds. Again, I don't want to say anything that I might regret without thinking about it. But that's one of those hockey mentalities. I think I need 24 hours to digest that one before I say anything. So,
Perfect. I'll plan to hear from you on it tomorrow then.
well, no, don't plan until Bike Friday. Because
Well, the
I've already,
application is due Friday, so.
well, Thursday then.
Okay.
I'm sure, I like to
Fair
hear what
enough.
the chairman might have a position statement on that one too. That'd be interesting to see what George has to think on that one, so.
Sure. So
Tobin, what's
maybe
your-
that'll give you an
yeah.
opportunity to talk to him about that.
Yeah, well, there you go. Yeah, so. From the
Nicole,
porch.
just to say on that first responder one, I don't think that one isn't due Friday.
Correct. That one's due September. I believe.
September 3rd. So we have a little bit of time on that. I have some, and Nicole, you very well may have these too. I have some slides. I'm guessing you maybe listened in on the webinar from the Department of Treasury. And actually the slides are pretty good and decent. I've looked them over, I think 52 times, and now I'm getting to understand them a little bit better. But I mean,
Understood.
but they're, it's quite complex but the slides are not, they're good, I think, and I'd be happy to, if you don't have them, Nicole, I could send them to you and you could share them with the committee if you guys are interested in seeing it. It just kind of gives some bullets.
Knowledge is power. Absolutely.
And it has the applications, and they have some pretty good instructions, and again, if you want to nerd out on it, I mean, you could definitely have plenty of information if you're interested.
Why don't you just send the CARES Act along too?
So
That's only-
just to clarify, in the first of the two grants, we haven't got to the third one yet, I don't think, but on the April and May payroll reimbursements for law enforcement, 911, and certain mitigation of the COVID-19 employees, that's due Friday, correct?
Yes.
But the last one we just talked about, the one I wanted my 24-hour hockey rule to apply to, was the premium pay for law enforcement and 911. That is not due Friday, correct? Or incorrect?
No, there are two different grants. The law enforcement one is due Friday. The 911 is due September. Although I don't think we want to treat those two groups any differently.
Okay, so the law enforcement on the premium pay is also due on Friday.
Yes, sir.
And
I
the
understand.
911 enforcement or the premium pay, the 911 group is not due on Friday.
Yes, that's
Oh,
my
you want to,
understanding.
you want to combine, okay, all right.
Steve, is that, yeah, I just didn't want to, those premium pay ones are first come, first serve. If
Yes.
we've got the application ready for the sheriff's department, law enforcement one, it's a duplication and, just getting, all it is getting the right employee name down and amount and it's the same application.
Yes, yeah. the
I would
first
want to get it out at
responder,
the same
yeah.
time.
Yeah, the first responder hazard premium, but they couldn't make the name any more difficult. First responder hazard pay premium program. That one is, as Nicole had said, that's 100 million. That's the $1,000 per eligible employee. And that one has an application period of July 7th through September 30th. That one is the first come, first serve. And it says, the application is deemed, well, that's just how you submit it. And then like Nicole said, it's distributed on November 14th. And that's the one that's the law enforcement officers, firefighters, EMTs, paramedics, 911, corrections officers, airport, so that one there is, and also like Nicole said, that one is incurred costs. So those payments must be made by September 30. It's just those flat payments is my understanding. It's that $1,000. So if there's any kind of, fringes or whatever related to that, those are not covered
Right.
under the grant. So yeah, that one has got that September 30 date, and the other one is Friday. But I can understand where you're coming from, Nicole, as far as maybe if you're going to do one and or both, conceptually you'd want to have, at least a game plan by Friday, and definitely have the one submitted by Friday, and then kind of go from there. But yeah, you aren't guaranteed, and that's the one, as Nicole said, that's a first come, first serve. So if you waited until September 30, your chances of, and I think, is that kind of your logic, Nicole, is your chances of getting those dollars. If you wait till the end of the application period, you're at the tail end rather than at the head,
Right.
and
That's my
so-
understanding of first come, first serve.
Yeah. So your likelihood of
You want to be in the front of the line.
touche, yes. But your likelihood of getting dollars when you're out at the tail end is who knows?
Yeah.
But yeah, so I would think the sooner you commit to that and submit, your likelihood to get it would be better compared to waiting until.
Yes.
Yeah, agreed.
Do either of you know approximately how much money we're talking about? I mean, if we applied for this one Friday, and then you have to pay the bonus pay before you get reimbursed. How much money would we be out if the state said, oh, that fund's dry, we can't pay you anything? So.
I don't know if Nicole, you know that. I don't know.
Was that the 75,000 you said?
Yeah, I think it's really close to that 75,000. I mean, even with FICA, and I think we're talking about around 64 individuals, and not all of them would be the $1,000 necessary. So I think 75,000 is a real good educated guess right now.
Okay.
And if you want, with FICA and all that stuff, I can figure that for you. But I'm thinking 75 is.
No, I just wanted to ballpark figure what we're talking about. Yeah.
And then it could be less than that. I won't make a move without talking to the county attorney. I can't risk setting a precedent that we can't live up to. So.
Right. And the other one, the one as Nicole had mentioned, get back to my slides, but the other one, and that's got a real, even the Public Safety and Public Health Payroll Reimbursement Program. That's the other one where Nicole had mentioned that potentially the health department could tag in on that. That one is that's the one that gets prorated.
That's the prorated, okay,
Yeah,
great.
and that one is, you know, no later than the 18th, it looks like, of September, round one. Well, distributions are on the 18th, so excuse me. So, you know, so that one is the prorated one. That one does allow for fringes and so forth to be incurred or included.
Retirement, health, I mean, yeah, it's
Yeah,
gonna be sizable.
So that one is a little more, you know, you can't do, you know, bonus or lump sum payments, no retirement payouts out of it, but it does, you know, allow for, you know, insurance premiums, payroll taxes, retirement contributions, FMLA, overtime, yada, yada, yada. That one is, like I said, I think is a little more, you know, where the costs that, you know, can be submitted are a little more, I don't want to say vague, but that one, I think the state is, again, I would agree with Nicole in saying you don't want to, you know, set any precedents, but one of the slides, for instance, just I can, you know, again, this is all public information because it's, you know, on the slide, it says the state of Michigan in its own use of the CRF, which is the CARES, I can't remember what that, you know, the
Relief program.
CARES relief program funding is utilizing the public safety presumption that all payroll expenses are presumed to be related to mitigating the COVID pandemic. So that's pretty vague and that's pretty open. So, you know, I think that if there's an opportunity there, I think they're allowing for utilization of those dollars but there's a pot of only so much. I mean, it's not an infinite pot. So, you know, I mean, it's you know, you have the ability to, you know, get as much as you can up to your prorated component. I think is the way I read it.
Hot off the press from accountant Chris Whitmer, who is feverishly working to gather this data. 707,000 is our number right now for April and May payroll to hopefully be reimbursed. Obviously, the 200 million isn't going to last long. Isabella County's amount is 707,000. 90+% is general fund. So thank you, Chris, for providing us that up-to-date information.
Awesome. Okay.
It gives us a real good idea of the potential. So even at a proration, there'll be something coming.
Right. And just to, I mean, keep in mind the two pots that Nicole is talking about right now, both of those are federal, and both of those are subject to single audit. So that'll be just some, you know, some added things that we'll have to deal with, you know, as far as, you know, when we prepare our scheduled expenditures of federal awards, the CFA, you know, that we, you know, we'll need to include those dollars on there, and they'll be audited by the external auditors and that type of thing. And because, you know, I just recently had a county client ask me similar questions to like what we're talking about. And I think it's wise. I mean, based on the guidance that's out there, are we sure that this is covered? Well, we don't really know, because I mean, it's the best data that we have today. It looks like just about anything that that kind of related. I mean, it sounds like we've got good information. I think they were maybe a little bit fuzzier, and I just, said, my suggestion would be is to claim it, and hope that, it appears based on our discussions that it would be eligible. And so therefore you should apply.
Yeah, it didn't sound like it was going to question it, but I mean, we really had some heartburn. Is like, do we do my wage? Do we do Margaret? I've heard her say she's been working on COVID, but is it a direct mitigation? It doesn't fall. So we really struggled with it because the state pretty much said, if you had payroll, it was COVID.
And that's what they're saying.
200 million isn't going to last the afternoon in that scenario. So, we were thoughtful at least about what the departments were requesting reimbursement for. I do want to talk about one additional pot of Magic CARES Act dollars that are coming our way. Fancy word from the state, replacement revenue. I always get very nervous when I hear that word from the state. But apparently they have made the decision to save $97 million in their general fund budget by not sending us our August state shared revenue payments. And it's okay. We're going to be fine because they're going to replace that revenue with a pot of $150 million in CARES Act dollars that will go out to us in the same proration that the state shared revenue was going. So theoretically, we're not getting any of our August state shared revenue payment, but we should be getting replacement revenue to the tune of 1.5 times that. So
Okay.
stay
When
tuned.
is that coming, Nicole? When is that?
They didn't.
Didn't say? Okay.
They,
I was just
they
curious.
didn't have that level of detail. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Is that something some of either our state representative or our state senator could get us that answer possibly, or how would that work?
I think they would be in the know over
Okay.
anyone. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's a good point.
So in other words, they're not going to pay as they should pay. They're going to pay more, but possibly don't know when you're going to get it.
Right, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which is a game they like to play with our revenue sharing,
Yeah,
especially.
I have seen that work with my children. Dad, I owe you this, but if you give me this, then okay, yeah, okay, never mind, sorry. So, anyway. So that's our 3 grandson that we had discussed on, okay. Tobin, any questions on those?
No, sir.
All right, I have nothing more on that, so let's see what was left on the agenda. I think we have another call to public. Is that a correct statement? I lost my,
That
little
is correct.
here we go.
There is no one online. I do have a sticky note here, though, that I have to comment to Tobin to please get with Michelle to bring in your laptop to do your upgrades.
Yep, okay.
Thank you. And then for commissioners, do you wish to attend the 2020 annual conference of MAC that they're going to be doing virtually next month? It's a $50 registration fee. It's running from the 18th to the 27th. So I believe they're going to have, virtual meetings, virtual keynotes, this type of thing. Is that something that interests you to attend?
That's a $50. Usually on those, it's like are they going to have them pre-recorded so we don't have to sit there and try to schedule a time in, or if we miss a time, are they going to have it subject to like a webinar, pre-recorded one?
I would imagine if you pay the registration fee, all of those
Yeah.
materials would be recorded and made available to you afterwards. Yes.
Yeah, I'm finding as far as conferences go in general, I think we've hit it, this could be a positive coming out of the COVID situation. This is going to open up as far as someone who has to pay for conferences, and as a business owner. I think these have been very invaluable. I've been able to communicate and talk to people that, instead of spending $600, $700, $800 to go to a conference, I can sit here and do this and look at pre-recorded things. And I think that's going to be something too. Another thing with conferences, I'm just digressing before we go, because I don't want to take this any longer, is you see, a lot of times we're closing down conferences, but, I've always been a big proponent, or not a proponent. I think it's conferences do lend a lot, but right now, if you couldn't go, like say the Soaring Eagle, I'll give you an example. The Soaring Eagle right now probably aren't having a lot of conferences come in right now. But once what I would suggest doing places like that have big has big hotels, is have people assigned to their rooms for conferences, and you get room conferences in, and then they have like the speakers, go to a small room and record everything, and then schedule meetings after the speaker speaks for anyone who wants to ask questions, and go up and individually meet the speaker, but have people in their rooms watching the Zoom. So you have like a Zoom conference at a certain hotel, limited only to that personnel for conferences. I think that is going to be a norm coming down in the future. Instead of having big conference halls where people are a foot apart, but yeah, you can still network. You can still network if you want to network. You can still have a group of 10 people meet in a suite somewhere or do something if you really want to get into a person network. But anyway, I digress. That's away from the county business. So Colvin, anything else? Or Nicole, anything else, or
Just if you're interested in me registering you for the conference.
when do we let you know?
I don't see an early bird or anything like that. How about by the first of next week?
All the other commissioners know about it too?
Yes, I've talked to them
Okay.
all.
Could you send me, and Tobin, I don't know if you, could you send me a reminder on that by email?
Absolutely, yeah.
If you wouldn't mind,
Yeah, absolutely.
because, you know, being out in California time here, and as you've seen, I've been eating a Einstein Brothers bagel and drinking a cup of coffee, so. It was an interesting 2-block walk too this morning, so.
If it's a pre-recorded thing and we can look at it at our convenience, then I would be interested in that.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, Colvin, you're gonna be a little busy coming up, aren't you? Right in August, isn't that when you're supposed to start Central?
Yeah,
That's gonna be an early start.
yeah, yep, a week early, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, we're gonna be busy.
But you've been busy right along. When you started like a month ago or 2 months ago, didn't you? Or when getting everything ready?
We've been working right through. For a while, we were alternating a week on and a week off. We went back to full time in late May, I think.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah.
Okay. Anybody else? Jessica? Or not Jessica, Nicole, sorry.
Thanks for checking though, Commissioner.
I'm good, sir. Thank you.
Tobin, anything else?
Oh,
I got nothing. All right. I will adjourn the meeting at, let's see, it says 8:21 here, so 11:21.
Excellent.
Got it.
All right. Very good.
Travel
All right.
safe.
Thank you.
see you, folks.
That's it.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.